everybody, and welcome to this episode of Ed Dale Live. We're going to have a lot to do, and whether you're watching live or listening from the podcast, welcome wherever you are. This is the show where I answer your questions about online marketing, digital marketing, business, just getting things started, tweaking things, experiments, testing, and just reminding you what's actually important and what you actually need to focus on. So that's a key part of this whole show. And I should remind you, of course, that at any time during the week, or indeed if you happen to be joining me live now, you can go to live.eddale.co and you can drop off a question like many of you have this week. Some beauties this week we've got coming up. Doesn't matter whether you're listening to the podcast or watching this on video or seeing a replay, you can go to live.eddale.co at any time and ask me anything. We did, like last week, for example, we had a couple of hot seats, which was a lot of fun. So if you want me to have a look at your opt-in page or your website and you've got a problem with it or a conversion problem or something that's going on with it, love to hear from you. And you never know your luck. We might go through and review it here live on the show. So you can do any sort of questions, anything that you wish. Of course, I should say, and there's always an answer to a lot of questions that I get, is that the challenge is live right now. It's fully up to date. It's fresh. You can do it at your own speed, at your own pace, to get all the basics and get started. You can go to challenge.co is the name of the website, and it's available right now today. It's ready to go. If you want to get the best foundation to start your business, or indeed you look at it from the point of view, I know a lot of people actually who use it as spring training, for example, where they go and review things just like a baseballer goes down to the summer climbs and they review the basics. It's often a great way of doing that. In fact, I'm going to show you a really interesting tweak on that as we go through the show today. All right, so let's pop that there. Okay, an interesting week. Of course, this past week we've had the rise of Instagram stories. Many of you know how enthusiastic I am about Instagram. I think it's one of the few places left where you can actually get literal free traffic. And it's fascinating to see, and they quite openly said, yeah, we borrowed the stories format for Snapchat. Now, I think I'll save a review of it till next week, and I've been definitely experimenting, and you've probably noticed that if you follow me on Instagram. But what's far more pertinent is a question: when you see a major new feature like this announced, and usually you see a whole lot of people on social media freaking out and saying, oh, you got to follow me here, you got to follow me there. It's funny, I've noticed a lot of people on Instagram getting people to follow them on Snapchat so they can see their Snapchat stories. None of that's important. What's important is your market. Does your market use Instagram? Does your market use Snapchat? I can tell you from just my experiments, my Instagram stories get way more views than my Snapchat stories. Two reasons. One is I'm followed by a lot more people on Instagram, and I think my demographic skews older, so it doesn't surprise me at all that Instagram stories seem to work better than Snapchat stories. It depends on your market, but if you're marketing to millennials or younger generation, then Snapchat is going to be a fantastic way to go. Here's the thing: we need to test, we need to experiment, and it's not whether there's right or wrong. You shouldn't be doing one or the other. This is not a war that we need to fight. It's a matter of you serving your market. What tools, what mediums, what channels allow you to serve your market best? That's always the question that you must ask when you ever see anything new going on, just as we do here with Instagram stories. Is it going to be useful for my market? Is it going to be impactful for my market? You need to test and you need to figure out. I think Instagram is a fantastic channel for a lot of markets, not all of them, but a lot of markets. It's definitely worth testing and experimenting with for sure. So there you have it. Now, as I mentioned, of course, that if you're watching live, you can submit question at any time. If you're not live, though, or if you're listening to this in the car, you're jogging, or you're doing some other Pokemon going, maybe. That's what I'm doing these days, podcasting and Pokemon going, listening as I walk the dogs. At any time, you can drop in a question to live.eddale.co. And it was really interesting. I got 3 questions all at once, which was really interesting during the week. And I thought, oh, look, I'll pop them up here so you can see what I got. There are 3 questions, and they're actually intensely related. Len asks, "Hi Ed, hello from sunny Brisbane. Do you have a suggested checklist for either preliminary or preparatory considerations that someone should work through before commencing one's internet journey?" Len Forsyth. Spoiler alert, the answer to that, of course, is the challenge. Challenge.co gives you literally the step-by-step process that will get you started. And if you're looking at doing a new market, a different market in a particular niche, single target market, which we'll be talking about today, you would still use that process. But it's also related to this question, which Robert has, which is, my main goal has been to become an affiliate for some products I enjoy. What do I have to do to make some money as an affiliate in today's complicated internet marketing environment? And then Sue asks, I have an affiliate website and want to know, do you work with people who have this type of website? Or do I need to have a product in order for you to help? Okay, all different questions coming from different angles. They all pretty much have the same answer. And it's about how you approach. Now, the approach that I'm talking about here is understanding that you're not picking products. You're not picking services. Your first job when you're looking at doing these marketing sites is absolutely picking your market. What market are you going to go into? This is the absolute key to this. If you don't understand a market, look, let me take this another way. There are so many times people come up with ideas. They come up with, I've got an idea for a mousetrap. Oh, I've got an idea for this. Oh, I've got an idea for that. And they go about implementing this idea. And then they go, hello world, here's my thing. And they may have spent months, maybe years bringing this thing to market. And lo and behold, there's nobody there that's interested in it. And they've spent all this time and energy doing it. It's the wrong way to go. Whereas if you build up a tribe, if you build up people who are interested in your product, and any products in this market, things that solve problems, things that help them where they want to go, boom, you are set. You're in all sorts of, that's exactly where you want to be. So this is what we're going to look at today. And that is looking at your first task. Okay, and in fact, I'm going to do it in a really interesting way. Not only am I going to teach you through this, I'm actually going to show you how I break down these tasks. And you all well know the board that sits behind me, my Kanban board. Let me just bring that up here. So you all know that board behind me and literally controls everything, right? Everything to do. And there are a bunch of post-it notes. So I thought what would be interesting is not only teach you this particular strategy, but then actually give you the specific tasks. Literally, I'm going to give you the post-it notes that you're able to look at and grab and utilize yourself. You can literally write out your own post-it notes. Now, if you're listening to this on the podcast, no stress. Just go to the blog, eddale.co, look for the replay, and we'll have a download link so you can download all of this. I've got a really snazzy PDF, which you can download all of this stuff as well. So let's get back here and let's get cracking. So when I say the first task that we need to create, it really is all about that job one, focus one of the only 6 focuses you need to have in your business, which is understanding your market. Now, when people do this, typically that's what you see. You see this researching the market. They might create a task. I need to research a market. Well, we can be a lot more scientific about that. The first thing, as I've already said, we need to pick a market. And that market, it's crucial that you are interested in that market. You are curious about that market. You're passionate about that market. In the old days, a decade ago when I started the challenge, you didn't actually really need to know much about your market at all. You didn't need to really stress about it. You didn't need to really care about it. You just followed the process and it worked. I was not that interested in wedding or wedding planning, but that was a very successful ebook. In fact, I'd hate to be involved in that market now. But today, one of the huge differences is that you have to be involved in your market, because the way ideas spread and the way that you help people is not product to product, it's person to person. That's what social media is all about. That's the social in social media. In terms of targeting people and building your tribe, it revolves around people. It doesn't revolve around things, and that's a massive change. That change has been brought about because we can market individually to people now. So that means that you have to be prepared to put effort into your marketplace. And the old strategy of being across 15 or 20 different markets just is a no-go in this day and age. Because here's the deal, right? Think about it. Product A, product B. Product A, and it's same service, same price, same everything. Everything's the same. Except this person, the one product comes from Acme Corporation, which publishes a whole bunch of things in different markets. Or this second product, you know the person, you listen to their podcast, you've seen some videos on YouTube, you read their blog occasionally, maybe you saw them speak live. If all things are being equal and it solves your problem and you want to buy something, who are you going to buy off? The person who's an influencer in the market or not? Now, immediately I say this, it freaks people out because I think, oh, Ed, I don't want to be in front of a camera. I don't want to do anything like this. And indeed, when I saw, Robert's and Sue's question where they're talking about affiliates and affiliate marketing, the promise of affiliate marketing is a very seductive one for a lot of people because you can be an entrepreneur and really not want to deal with people, to be quite introverted. And when I talk about market leadership and market influence, the introverts go, because that's not what they want to do. They want to be invisible to the market. They don't want to be in front of the camera. Well, funny I should mention in front of the camera, because there are two types of influencers. There are the people in front of the camera, and then there are the people behind the camera. And I would actually argue to you that perhaps the most powerful influencers are the ones that are behind the camera rather than the ones in front of the camera. Point being is that in today's day and age, you have got so many methods to market, so many media. And we know from our Colby profiles that while you may hate video, it probably means that you enjoy writing and vice versa when you're an entrepreneur. So we know that there's a way for you to go to a market now. You don't have to stress about that. It doesn't mean that you have to be in front of camera. And that's what I'm hearing a lot when I see people saying, hey, I'd really like to do affiliate products. That's the promise of affiliate products. The reality is, though, is you still need to build your list to be successful. You don't want to be just selling products for somebody who's making all the money. In a successful affiliate program, the one person who's guaranteed to be successful is the person who created the affiliate product in the first place. Whether their individual affiliates are successful or not, well, who knows? I think the affiliate market, and I've said this a couple of times, is really, really useful at two stages in your business journey online. It's very useful when we're looking at testing the market, because we can use affiliate products to test a market so we don't have to create our own, so that we can see that it's going to be worth spending our time, and we're going to come on to that in a second. And then the second part, where they really are lucrative and you hear the people who are doing really, really well with affiliate sales, it's when they've built a tribe and they're making recommendations to their tribe, so that they've got a list, an email list very specifically, and they can heartily recommend things to their marketplace through their YouTube channel, through their podcast, whatever it happens to be. They're the two times an affiliate. I think affiliate products are really, really, really useful. However, back to understanding our market first approach. So we need to be curious. We need to be interested in our market, because we're going to be spending a year or two in this market getting involved and researching it. Now, that's the next trigger warning that where people freak out. Oh, a year or two working on a market. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, I can't handle that. Oh, no. Well, as I often say, if you want to be a doctor, and, everybody says, you look at the surveys and you go, well, who are the highest paid professionals? And, typically it's, surgeons and so on. What you don't know, what the hidden story about that is, that they don't hit that $160,000 plus salary till they're at least 10 years out of their, what's the word? You know what the word, not interns. Oh, that's terrible. It's gone from my head. Grey's Anatomy, where they're all studying to be doctors, where they work, 24-hour shifts. The word will come to me in a minute, and I'll be horribly embarrassed. But here's the thing. You think of that. Oh, they have to work hard for 2 years there. No, then they've had to study in college and rack up a huge college debt. And by the way, to qualify to become a doctor, certainly in in Australia and the UK, it's not only about money. It's you haven't had a life since you were 10. You've had tutors. You've gone to after-school tutoring. You haven't had a social life because you have to get in the top 0.5% of high school results, regardless of amount of money that you have to become a doctor. So it's a lifetime commitment. Here we're saying, you may have to put a year into a market to figure out whether you can earn $100,000. But even more importantly is the way, if you follow this particular process that I'm outlining to you, you are spending a week. Okay, you're spending a week. And don't worry, keep listening, because I'm going to literally break it down step by step, Kanban style, so you can see exactly what I mean by that. The third part of this, and it's the third freak out area, is we need to break down your chosen market into single target markets. Okay, so, and I've used plenty of examples. I often use golf as one of my examples. So with golf, it's, is it, putting, driving, sand play? They're all examples of single target markets inside the big market of golf. It could be fishing, and there's different types of fish, bass, trout, tuna. There's different places that you can fish, stream, ocean. Each of these are markets inside themselves, single target markets. Fly fishing, spin fishing, different types of fishing. They're all different types of markets. When you look at weight loss, for example, there are different processes. There's Atkins, there's paleo, there's South Beach. There's symptoms. Why do people want to have weight loss? Are they pre-diabetic? Do they have energy issues? And of course, demographics. And this is, these two sound crazy, but they're actually, the smartest marketers are starting to utilize this type of breakdown a lot, which is weight loss for teachers, weight loss for real estate agents, because the internet, our superpower, our advantage, is that we have the ability to target these individual markets and make them visible. We don't have the hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend spraying the internet with, brand-based advertising to hopefully catch somebody when they're interested in losing weight or they're interested in starting to learn how to bass fish. We don't know when they're going to be doing that. We don't have that advantage. Our advantage is we can be small, sleek, and smart by targeting single target markets, because it makes it so much more interesting. And it makes it so much easier to target to that market, because ultimately, weight loss, we talk about, and Dean Jackson is brilliant at talking about the concept of invisible and visible markets. And we need markets to be visible, not invisible. So weight loss is the classic case of an invisible market. People in the first instance aren't, that you have to identify them by some other way than by, people don't go around listing their overweight status. You have to think of ways to make that market visible. Now, of course, there are many places, like there are many groups, there are many support groups, there are people who like Weight Watchers on Facebook. So all of a sudden, it would go to say, if people are following Weight Watchers on Facebook, they're probably interested in potential weight loss solutions. And that's where real estate agents and teachers for weight loss all of a sudden becomes really interesting, because you can target teachers, you can target real estate agents. And if I'm looking for a weight loss solution and I happen to be a real estate agent, and there's these generic weight loss solutions and there's ones for real estate agents, even though it intellectually doesn't make any sense, I'm probably going to try the one for real estate agents first. The classic, Frank Kern technique, which was pioneered, it seems simple now, but back in 2004, it was revolutionary, which is, instead of offering dog training, offering dog training for chihuahuas, dog training for Shelties. Now, the fundamental training was exactly the same, but in terms of making markets visible and getting people to raise their hand, they just don't have the attention. They've got so much awesome stuff that they could be doing. So we need to be able to find them. And we need to be able to make that market visible. And breaking things down, as you will see when I outline the process, literally post-it note by post-it note, getting them to outline that single target market makes it so much easier. Of course, people freak out at this point again, because they think, I just can't, focus on putting for the rest of my life. I want to do all sorts of elements of golf. And you can. But doesn't it make sense to MVP, minimum viable process? Because another big thing, and we know 35% of entrepreneurs really have issues with getting started because they don't want to pick the wrong market. This is a huge deal. It's been a huge deal for a decade of the challenge. They just consistently don't want to commit to a market because they're afraid they're going to choose the wrong market. Well, as I'm about to prove to you, you could test out a market a week and continue to check it out and continue to test for it. Okay, you can absolutely do that, and I will prove it to you in just a moment by showing you the minimum viable process for researching the market. There's no, it's not like you're making a decision to amputate a limb when you're picking a market and breaking it down to a single target market and creating a funnel in that particular individual single target market to test it, right? It's not. Yet most people freak out. And so I figured out a really great cheat. And this is one of the wonderful things about Kanban as a process. And I teach Kanban for entrepreneurs and with the Achiever formula. This is a really powerful thing. And for those of you who haven't seen the Kanban process, this will be a real insight for you, because I literally, before the broadcast, prepared in the oven earlier, I just looked at it completely fresh and thought, well, okay, Ed, let's put your money where your mouth is. How would you go about planning out the next week if I'm going to experiment with my first funnel in a market? And I said, okay, well, let's do it. So I will also point out, if you can't see the screen or you're listening on the podcast, this PDF will be available for you to download at my blog, eddale.co. Okay, so if you just go to eddale.co and click the blog button, you'll see the replay of this broadcast, and the download PDF will be here, because you may want to take these post-it notes and stick them to your own Kanban board. And so when I'm thinking about researching the market, I'm thinking about, okay, well, how do I figure this out? How do I break this down? And so I break it down with post-it notes, because I know I need to chunk these down to actionable items. And so this is how I would do it for this particular process. So the first post-it note I've written here is spend 10 minutes free writing what markets I like. So I'm imagining that I'm coming into this super cold. So the first thing, almost inevitably, the first task that I always do is a free writing exercise. Now, what's a free writing exercise? Very easy to describe. I literally set a timer for 10 minutes, my trusty time timer, or I ask my smartphone or Alexa to set a timer for 10 minutes. And then I free write. And there's only two rules to free write. One is you must keep moving the pen. You can't stop at any particular point in time until the timer is up. And that's it. That's the rules. Okay. And typically I start out by saying I'm going to take a free and easy look at what markets I like doing. And then I start writing. And so I'll think about that. This can be a real trick for some people, I know. So, little tips that I give people when I'm suggesting, what markets I like and doing a 10-minute free writing exercise just to get your brain warmed up. I think about, well, where do I spend my time? Because things that you spend your time on are a very good indication of things that you're interested in. On that case, Clash Royale would be a very, very good market for me to explore. It actually would be a brilliant market. Take any particular game that has millions and millions of people playing it on a daily basis. As I say, I'm going to cry if one of my Madcasters isn't about to publish a Pokemon Go Madcast, because it's just made for it. Even though it's super hyper popular now, and yes, it will die off. It'll die off to the point where there's only a couple of million people playing it each day instead of literally tens of millions of people playing it each day. So those are sorts of things I look at. I also suggest to people, well, what did you do when you were a kid? What hobbies? What did you really enjoy? And I really loved doing this because, unfortunately, and I've got to say this, as adults, and as you get on, sometimes you forget that you actually did enjoy anything, and it's so sad, but not uncommon when I'm working with a private client and saying, "What do you enjoy?" and they really struggle to think for something, and so you really have to look at what can you be curious about. Notice I never at any point here have I said, what are you expert in? Although, of course, if you are an expert in something, then that is great. And the biggest problem I have with experts in things is they often think the grass is greener on the other side. And when they start an online business, they're so sick of what they're expert in, they want to do something else, which is usually a shame because they can utilize all of that expertise. Working with private clients at the moment, and that's the number one thing, is just getting them to create a flexible niche style business using their expertise instead of typically consulting and trading time for money. So the reason this post-it note's so important, notice how I've said spend 10 minutes. So guess what? Me saying that this is a successful task done is not anything that I've written. It's only because, notice I haven't said pick a market, although spoiler alert, that is coming. I've said spend 10 minutes free writing what markets I like. So as long as I've kept my pen moving for 10 minutes, and by the way, for 95% of you, if you haven't grown up on a computer, pen and paper is a way better way of doing this, almost universally. It's because it's how we were taught at school. It's how our brains are wired. You'll come up with your best stuff. And here's the great thing about this free writing thing. You try this. You try this 10 minutes. I guarantee you, inside the junk, there'll be a gem. There always is, 100% of the time. I've never had somebody do this for 10 minutes and not had a gem come out. A lot of it may be complete vomit, but there'll be always a gem. There is always a gem when you do this activity, and that's why it's worth doing it, because it always gives you something, or it starts you off on a train of thought when you started, you didn't even know that you knew that you were going to go in that direction. It's brilliant. One final tip when you're doing this, and by the way, this is all, I learnt this process. It's a great book by Mark Levy, Levy. It's called Accidental Genius. Great book on the whole topic, and all you high fact finders will go rushing out and read the book instead of actually doing it for yourself. But, I can't stop you. But that's all you need to know. And the tip I was going to say is when you go dry, and it happens from time to time, just write, I can't think of what to say. I've got nothing. I'm drawing a blank here. Geez, Ed, I can't believe you made me do this. Because here's what happens. Guaranteed, 100% of the time, your brain realizes, wow, you are not going to stop for 10 minutes. Oh, I better give you something. And it's amazing. It works every single time. So that's our first Post-it note. Our second Post-it note is pick a market. You set a timer for 10 minutes. Notice again, I've set a timer for 10 minutes. I'm giving you 10 minutes to pick your market. And I've written here in red, it's not forever. You are not deciding whether to amputate a limb. It's just to start. It's just to do this one process for a week. This will take you less than a week. If you're keeping time, we're now up to 20 minutes. Okay, if you're keeping time, we're at 20 minutes. Pick a market. So the thing is, you set a timer. You set a timer because it gives you a constraint. You must come up with something. At the end of that 10 minutes, you've picked a market that we're going to work on for the rest of this week. And it's only this week. You could explore 52 markets in 52 weeks if you really want to. You won't, because you'll find something that you like and that works out. But that's it. So you put a deadline on it, because if you put a deadline on it, it'll work. So that's our post-it note. Pick a market, 10 minutes. That is a success. That ticket goes in the done column if you have got a market at the end of 10 minutes. So you've picked golf, you've picked weight loss, you've picked fishing, you've picked whatever. Okay, you've picked pottery valuation, anything. Piano stool restoration, just a couple of my favourite markets that make over $100,000 a year. Our next ticket here, our next post-it note is, okay, we're going to now create. Now, this is doing in my style, and this is starting to, you can tweak this to whichever way works best for you. But my next here is 25 minutes, and again, there's that time limit, because if you don't set a time limit, you'll just piddle around, you'll watch YouTube videos, you'll get distracted, and most of you listening to this, you are not a 20-something with no commitments and you can just burn the candle at both ends. You've got commitments. You've got perhaps a 9-to-5 job. You've got kids you need to put through school and college, right? This is, I'm being realistic here. So if you can grab 25 minutes and then mind map all the possible single target markets. And in fact, can I do this? Let's see. This will be fun. I wonder if this will work. If you're seeing this live, I've actually, when I was doing the notes for this particular broadcast, I actually did little mini mind maps here of golf, and then I put putting, driving, sand play, and then I've got fishing, type of fish, bass, trout, tuna. I've got, what else have I got here? I've got weight loss. I've got all those sorts of things. So, I've got different markets for different parts of the process. And it's worked a treat. So, that is part of the process as well. So I use a mind map. You might outline, but here's the thing, I've given myself 25 minutes to list all the possible single target markets. This is the first exercise I do with my private clients, because often, they will literally say, who do you serve? Who do you help? And they say, everybody. And that's a huge problem, because you can't. And if you've got limited resources, you have to pick tiny markets to start off with. Ultimately, we'll target a whole bunch of them. Like I said, this is not forever. This is for this week. We're picking these single target markets. So we have to break them down. And so the first thing, I don't want you to pick. I want to see all the different possibles. There are beginners, there are experts, men, women, what age groups. Don't just think demographics. Think about types, styles, hobbies. There are for people who like to draw and paint. There are people who sketch. There are people who work with pastels. There are people who work with oils. There are people that work with other stuff, right? They use different medias. There are different types of portraits. There are life portraits. There are landscapes. There are urban sketching. There's stacks of different types of single target markets. Because let me tell you, the tinier you can get your market at this stage, and again, is this going to be your whole business? Are you going to build your whole business around this tiny little single target market? Well, guess what? The good news is maybe absolutely you do. And that's awesome. That would be brilliant. Because then once you've got that business working and you've got it set up on autopilot and everything's rolling, then you can say, okay, I'm going to do another single target market in this niche now. I was listening to the great More Cheese, Less Whiskers podcast just this morning, and it was talking about a real estate agent who had perfected a way of getting leads in, I think it was, I want to say ocean facing property in a part of Massachusetts, a single town. I think it was Cape Ann, I want to say. How niche can you get? And it literally talking about, the entire market for this real estate agent is 1,000 properties. Just 1,000. But they have a great business just dealing with those 1,000 properties. And Dean was taking them through the less cheese, more whiskers, more cheese, less whiskers process of creating a, hey, well, if this works here in this market, why not transplant it to another market? This is what you can do as well. Okay. Then I have another 10 minutes free writing after I've done my mind map. I have to pick my first single target market. Set the timer for 10 minutes. And I've written a note here just to add to your post-it note. This is not life or death. This is for this week. So just pick one. And the way the factors I would use in my free writing, I'd say, is there any low-hanging fruit here? Do I know how to reach these people? Oh, there's a really active group I know on Facebook or on Reddit or some of those, things. In fact, we're going to talk about that in a second. Try go for low-hanging fruit, the one that you're most interested in, the one that you're most curious about, the one that you're going to enjoy researching the most. Okay, figure that out. Okay, so that's the next exercise. Then we're going to spend 25 minutes and we're going to find the most active groups online for that single target market. And so I've broken down this job here. We're not researching. We're not doing anything. Listen to what I'm saying. We're going to spend 25 minutes with a timer finding the most active groups for this single target market. And I've just jotted down a couple of reminders here on this post-it note for me to figure out, okay, well, first thing I'm going to do is search on Google. I'm going to look for target market forums, target market blogs. And I'm going to look at the number of people who are registered in that forum. How active does it look? Does it, and I'm going to make notes. I'm going to, save those in Evernote or OneNote or however you do it. So, open up a research file and crack those forums and blogs because we're going to need them in the next section. Facebook groups is a huge one right now. Two reasons. One is not only is it's a wonderful place and there's highly active Facebook groups, but you can also target those super easily because you can literally say, I want to advertise on Facebook to people of these groups, which is really awesome. Reddit, depending on your market, is incredibly, like if you are... again, it's very market dependent, but for example, if I was going to do my Clash Royale research, I would have to include the Reddit group because it's a brilliant place to find what's going in the market. Because why are we finding these groups? So after we've done our 25 minutes, and I've restricted you to 25 minutes, you've got to get this done in 25 minutes. That's all. It's a race. You've got to do it in 25 minutes. And because I'm making it a race, you're way more likely to do it because your brain works so much better with constraints. Otherwise, you might spend all week trying to find out the best places. If it's not, they're not that good a place if you can't find them in the first 25 minutes. Google does a magnificent job of sorting things for relevance and activity. So just grab the top forums from Google, grab the top blogs. Facebook does exactly the same thing. It tells you how many people are in those forums. One quick look, you can check to see how active it is, how many posts there are in a day, etc., etc., etc. All of those things are obvious. You need 25 minutes. That's it. That's it. Okay, that's our next post-it note. And then once you've made those notes, you've got those addresses, you're done. Well done. Let's move that post-it note into the done column. Then our next ticket is 25 minutes of research. And we're going to research because our market understanding, which is the first focus of any business, and in particular our single target market, because we've chunked our market down into a single target market, is we need to understand their pains. Pains is the most powerful motivator. People are most agitated to get out of pain, so it's the place to start. But let's do it in a really specific way. I'm giving you 25 minutes to research pain. What, Ed? Only 25 minutes? I've spent 3 months researching my market. Yes, and it's done you no good. You can do it in 25 minutes, and here's how you're going to do it in 25 minutes. We're going to take the forums, the blogs, the Facebook groups, and the Reddit posts, and we're going to look for, and trust me, this is really easy when it comes to pain. This is the simplest one, so it's the great way to start, is you're looking for phrases like, I hate, this annoys, I get so angry, I wish I couldn't do this, etc., etc., etc. You know what you're looking for. You're looking for pain. And those phrases, those subject headings, are often brilliant ways to do this. And trust me, people love putting their pains in subject headings. So whenever you see a pain, guess what you're going to do? Now, it depends on your style. Some of you may write it out on post-it notes and do it with post-it notes. Some of you might use 3x5 index cards. Some of you might take screenshots and use something like OneNote or Evernote. I must admit I'm a little bit of a fan of physical collation at this point. 65% of entrepreneurs are dreadful when it comes to recalling and grabbing digital information that they've stored. I know I'm in that 65%. How often do you go back and look at stuff in Evernote? For me, the answer is rarely. Whereas if I'm researching this and I've put the post-it notes up on my board, I can't avoid them, right? And it also makes it fun and easy to sort them, which we're going to do a bit later on. Then, of course, we're going to go for our 25 minutes of gains research. So for gains, we're looking for places where people want to be. We're going to go to those same sites we found, and we're going to look for phrases like, I'm so jealous, I wish I could, I dream about doing this. Those sorts of phrases are absolutely, just signposts for potential gains. Now, I should add as a side benefit, as you become interested in your market and you've decided to commit, and we're building funnels out and so on, you want to be checking these forums, these sites every few days or at least once a week, and you want to have your pain, gain, and job to be done radar out. And the way you do it is these questions. And I do this all the time. And you do this, and it makes your life so much easier for funnels, so much easier for everything else. And if you make it visual, it allows parts of your brain, because genetically we just work better this way. If you can stand up in front of a board or a pin board and pin 3x5 cards, there's a reason storyboards and TV and film are broken down in cards and where people can physically look at them. You're more creative. There's a reason why at my workshops I get everybody sticking post-it notes all around the walls, because you think better that way. But, horses for courses. I'm just telling you how I particular do it. The next one, which is jobs to be done research, and 25 minutes of jobs to be done research. Sometimes people are confused by jobs to be done, but it's sort of like the how-tos. Like, how do I hold the golf club? How do I create this fly lure to catch bass? They're literally the how-do-Is, the step-by-steps. And so, guess what you look for? Spoiler alert, how do I? So you look for questions saying, how do I download a PDF, or how do I create a PDF on my iPhone? How do I line up and read a green so I can putt better? These are jobs to be done. So you want to note all of those down. Okay, and again, my fave is 3x5 cards or post-it notes. I must admit, these days I'm more a fan of post-it notes. If you've seen my office or hotel rooms or anywhere, because you can move them about and you can get real physical with them. Okay, and really our last ticket now is we're going to do 3 5-minute timed sessions where we're going to take our pains, gains, and jobs to be done, and we're going to rank them from most important to least important. So on the pains, the pain that people seem to find the most painful, the most important pain, if you like, to the least important pain, just things that were annoyances people weren't that passionate about. When it comes to gains, the things that people really wanted to get to, this is where they wanted to end up. Oh, I'd love to have my own YouTube channel where I can sing my music. Oh, I'd just love to be a vlogger, whatever. Vlogger. My daughters hate it when I say vlogger. They go nuts. 3x5 minutes. Why 5 minutes, Ed? Oh my gosh, I'm making the most important decisions of my life here. Because guess what? We know from a whole bunch of scientific research that your gut feel, 5 minutes, typically is you can dedicate yourself to research these pains, gains, and jobs to be done and how important they are in their market. And the results will be very similar. They will be very similar. You've got incredible fast processing powers because you need to figure out whether the saber-toothed tiger is going to eat you or not. We can use these by using time constraints. And I can't tell you how important. That's why I've got timers everywhere in my office. It's so important. I can literally say a word and a timer will work. Won't it, Alexa? So that's the process. And then, of course, based on all of these, we can create our first funnel. Now, I've written here, for those of you who are not familiar with Kanban or our Achiever formula, that's what we call an epic, because, of course, creating a first funnel is then we have to take what our pains, gains, jobs to be done. We have to take our rankings and create a funnel. But that's the process of doing this. And so here you've got no excuse. I've given you the steps, step by step. I've given you the post-it notes. You can stick these up on your Kanban board, and you literally go from one. For the first thing I'm going to do is spend that 10 minutes. Going to pick a market. And like I said, this will be available as a really awesome PDF, if I do say so myself, on the blog later in the week when we post the replay on eddale.co. You'll be able to download this little PDF guide. And of course, I might add that it's also featured in the challenge, right? This is not a surprise to anybody who has downloaded all the amazing tutorials and videos of the challenge as well. So, that is available at challenge.co. You can absolutely do that as well. All right. So I hope you found that useful, because that's literally how I break things down. And by doing that, I can then focus, and you take that one post-it note and you do that, because for most of you, if it's not a full, or even if you are doing this full time, which is awesome, right? So much of your day is taken up with the guff, customer service, delivering the product, which is important, make no mistake, but it doesn't build your business, right? It doesn't let you create experiments. So by just having these tickets and being able to do that, like if you can, you can see there, I've got 2 for today. One's what I'm doing now, the live broadcast, that's very important. And there's one other, which I can't remember. But that's great. I don't need to remember because it's on the board. And I'll do it, but it's the thing that was the most important thing that I had to do today. All right, so there you have it. All right, let's go to some other questions. And I hope, Len and co, that was useful for you. Gosh. Len said, I can't find the PDF for your Kanban. Can you advise when this will be available? It's not there yet because I'm still live. For goodness sake, Len, I'm still live. Give me a break. We're here live. So it'll be up there in a couple of days' time. So you'll be able to follow on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter at ed_dale, I'll make sure I tweet when that is up and available as well. So that's the best way to figure that out. Okay, what else have we got here? Darcy says, I'm promoting somebody's college, internet marketing college. The high-end program costs $12,000, which, fair amount. How would you recommend that I structure my email sequence to best prepare my subscribers before introducing them to the funnel? Not dissimilar to everything that I've talked to now. Now, of course, when it's a high-ticket item, the best thing you can do is find people who are ready to raise their hands. And typically, they are going to be people that are very familiar with somebody's work. People will spend, people spend $25,000 to have me come to their offices for a few days to work with their teams. But they just don't walk off the street and fill out an order form and do that. Nor even do people, I don't even really email that I do that, because it's, people have to know me, and they have to be prepared to be ready for that level of indication. So you need to prove value. So you have to prove value. And, we use a sequence that we like to use. We call it the Achiever Formula sequence, which we build for people in Achiever Formula. And it really is 3 lots of steps of education, incredible value, then talking about if I'm going to spend $12,000, how am I getting $120,000 worth of value? Those are the sorts of things. But the key element there, the thing that will make your job immensely easier, is deal with people that have already got their hand up. So they're people who are already familiar with that person's work, that are familiar with, just like for me, if I was doing it, it's pointless to say somebody who's just started on with day 1 of the challenge, offering them, I'll come and work with your group for $25,000, or come to one of my 5,000, become a private client and work with me for a month for $5,000 online. It's not, somebody who's just starting out in the challenge may not be the most appropriate thing for them, right? So when you're doing that, that's the key, right? You've got to understand where they are in their journey and how this brings value. Let's have a look at this. What else have we got here? Tori says, "Hi Ed, I have a phone meeting with the CEO of the company who manages the online business of the doctor who created the diet I had an authority site for. He wants to discuss the possibility of my company taking over managing the doctor's online business. What one piece of advice do you have for me tomorrow?" Ask questions. Don't pitch. Right? Ask questions. Keep your... If I could get you to read the book Pitch Anything before tomorrow's meeting, that would be the thing that, I wish I had access to Pitch Anything, the book, before, years and decades of changing changing how you pitch. Best piece of advice is ask questions. What do they want out of their online marketing business? What have they tried so far? What's worked for them so far? What have they seen out there that they like the looks of? What do they want to achieve? What's key to this? What's a customer worth? Do you hear what I'm doing? I'm asking lots of questions. Don't pitch, right? Typically, when somebody goes to a meeting like this, they're all about, here's who I am, here's why, and I know you're not like this, Tori, but as a general rule, and even people who, we're thinking we have to sell people on our business. It's the wrong thing to do. People smell desperation, right? Who is the most powerful person in any meeting? Just as a general rule. It's the person who asks questions. Think about it. Think about any meeting you've ever been anywhere in your life. Who's the person who's in control of that meeting? It's the person who asks the most questions. So even when, what I often try to do is, even when I'm asked a question, I'll ask a question in return. And so for example, they say, tell us how you go about creating leads for our business. And I would come back to them and say, well, what are some of the ways that you've tried so far? Because by asking that question, I'm doing two things. One, I'm getting information. Two, imagine if you start saying, oh, well, I'm going to advertise on Facebook. And for whatever reason, they've used advertising on Facebook. Probably done it completely wrong. But they'll say, oh, we've tried that. That doesn't really work. What's happened to the meeting? It's instantly gone bleh. Right? Because you when you pitch, you lose that. The only thing that you want to be pitching when it comes to, because they've invited you, they've seen what you're doing, right? They've seen your expertise, and you will give the impression of more expertise by asking lots of questions. Right? And don't give answers on the spot. If they want you to come back with, if they want to give you an answer, be comfortable in saying, I need to get more information, right? Or I don't know. Be comfortable in saying that. Don't be somebody who makes up bleh on the spot. The goal of any meeting like this is you want them to be talking the vast majority of the time, right? Two awesome power moves in these type of meetings, and I'm not necessarily saying this for you, Tori, right now, but I just want you to know of this. Know when you're going to end the meeting. Okay, you've got about 20 you're lucky if you've got 20 minutes of actual focus for people who are in that meeting, right? Particularly CEO. You've got 20 minutes, right? So understand that once the meeting goes past 20 minutes, nobody can concentrate that long. It's just society, it's life. Even if you're there for 2 hours, they're gone after 20 minutes. So you need to be in a position where you're ending the meeting, right? Who's the most powerful person in the room? It's the person who ends the meeting, right? So I'm not saying this to be a dick, right? Don't be a dick, all right? And you're not, you're lovely. But don't be a dick. But also, be the person who ends the meeting and says, thanks, I've got this great information. How can we move this forward? What's the step? So you need to, the other big piece of advice, what's the objective of the meeting? What's the objective for you going in this meeting? Right? What's the action point you want to walk away with? So you be clear on that, or move towards, or take steps towards. The second most awesome power move, and this is incredible, and it takes incredible guts to do it, but it is so powerful. I'll mention it here on this podcast. And again, none of this is me. This is by the brilliant Oren Klaff, Klaff, and his book Pitch Anything. Is it about that 20-minute mark in the meeting is to say, look, gang, I'm not sure this is working out well, and I don't want to waste your or my time. Thanks. And then be quiet. It's an incredible meeting move, because one of two things will happen. Thing happened one, they're actually not that interested in not working out, so you've saved yourself a lot of time. You thank them and off you go, right? Don't thank them for their time, because you're providing value. The other thing will happen is they'll say, no, this is fantastic. This is great. This is, where they can be wanting you to stay. And at that point, that you've got some traction in there. That's a power move. I don't expect people to just go out and try that, but it is incredibly powerful. It's to test the situation. We're so scared in meetings of being rejected with great, because it's painful to get rejected. Isn't it better to rip the Band-Aid off quickly and understand that the meeting's not going anywhere? That would be a great thing to, a great thing to do. So good luck with that, Tori. Very exciting. With the overall opportunity in digital media where we are right now, what would you say is the big idea for publishers in 143 words? Leah, very simply is the ability to niche down to target very small markets and make a significant revenue from them. You need 1,000 people to pay you $100 a year, and that's $100,000 a year business. That's the brilliance of digital publishing. The other thing to me in terms of digital publishing right now, this is going over 143 words, but it's mobile. The world has changed on a dime, literally speaking. 2 years, we've gone from most people accessing stuff through a desktop to most people accessing stuff through the phone, right? And so if their approach isn't mobile first, they're wasting their time. You're wasting your time. Anybody listening to this is wasting their time if they're not now taking a mobile first approach, because that's where your customers are. That's where Joe and Jane Smith are. That's where 94% of people are accessing Facebook from a mobile device. So you need to have that mobile strategy. So they're the two things I would probably say are to me, what's most exciting about this. Is this whole undercurrent. People look at the unicorns, they look at all of the amazing, the Pinterests, the Instagrams, the $1 billion sales. That's not, I suspect most people watching and listening to this, we want flexibility. We want to be able to work wherever we are. We want to live wherever we want to be. We want to have enough income in to make sure everything's paid for and we enjoy our life and we have flexibility. And for most people, that starts as you start earning, according to all the studies, over about $75,000 a year. And then you work up and you build from there. But getting to that point where you're flexible, it's interesting, really interesting, working with a couple of private clients at the moment. The big thing that we're doing right now is designing their business so they can pursue their dreams of going and living in certain locations. That's the thing. I'm literally working with them right now to design their business so that they are able to go and work. I think one is in sort of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, for example. Another wants to go and work in Thailand. So let's design the business based on that. To me, that's the the whole beauty of digital publishing means you can work from anywhere. Mary Bartonowski, who I love, is, I think she's in Hawaii at the moment. When I started working with her, she was in Nepal and uploading her magcast from a Wi-Fi cafe in the Himalayas. So pretty amazing when you think about it. So that's the beauty, I think, of this market in this area. Tony says, how do I follow you on Instagram? Look for Ed Dale. Just do a search for EDDALE and you will see me there. All right. I think actually, we'll leave with this one last one. Hi, Ed. Chris from Victoria, BC here. Hope all is well. I'm finding promoting wearable technology a little like finding your first job. I think he's in wearable technology. Need experience before they hire you. How will you get experience if no one hires you? Etc. How should I present my idea of representing the product on a site that is yet to be built? How do I build the site if I don't know what products I'm selling? You know what, Chris? You go back and you replay today's broadcast, because that is the exact approach that you take. Further on, I often use this example. If you've had a chronic back pain for years, and you notice that a chiropractor's shown up in your town, and you know what, you've tried everything, it hasn't worked. You go to this chiropractor, you've had years of chronic back pain. You go in, you have a session, and they fix it. It's unbelievable. You walk out and you're just thanking them. It's amazing because you are pain-free for the first time in a decade. And then you go and you speak to somebody, because of course you're raving about this as you become a raving fan. It's this because this miracle worker has just arrived in town. And you say to that and the person you're speaking to says, "Oh yeah, I know that. You must have been their first ever patient. They're fresh out of chiropractic college," if that's what they call it. Now, here's the deal. If they've cured you of 10 years of chronic back pain, do you care whether you were their very first client or their last client, or they've been in the business for a decade doing chiropractic? You don't care. However, if I had said prior to you experiencing that, you will be their first ever customer, probably not going to go. Right? So that's the dichotomy, right? So how do you do that? You prove expertise by being an influencer in your market, by helping and serving people in those forums that we've found. You may do video. You might create a wearable YouTube channel if video is your thing. You might have a blog on that. So you start to build up influence so you can start to point people to that. In fact, again, working with another private client who has a lot of online material. When they were doing their proposal for a project which they got, it was fantastic because they were able to point to various elements. Oh, you might want to listen to me talk about this particular subject. Here's the URL. So you have to, when you're starting out, it's all about understanding that market, educating yourself. Because if you understand pains, gains, and jobs to be done, and this goes into funnel creation, once you understand those pains, gains, and jobs to be done, you don't have to solve the problem. You can point people in the direction. Here's 5 YouTube videos that I found really, really fantastic. You find those 5 YouTube videos, you go to Fiverr and gets to somebody to create you a 1 or 2 page PDF report. It will literally cost you $5. That becomes your download. Here's the 5 places to go to solve that particular problem. You've got nothing to do with it, but you pointed them in the right direction. You're the influencer. You're the tastemaker. And that is what makes what we're doing so amazing. All right. With that, thank you very much for joining me this week. Remember, all the time, if you're listening to this on the podcast or you're watching this in replay, if you would like me to do a hot seat on your website or your opt-in funnel or an email or whatever it happens to be, love to roll the dice. You never know your luck, and you can do that by going to live.eddale.co and you can fill in a question there. And again, if you want me to do a hot seat, try to put as much detail as possible in so I can help you. or your questions at any time during the week. And that will be fantastic. So live.eddale.co. Don't also forget the challenge at challenge.co, because, of course, with the challenge, a lot of what we've talked about today is outlined in great detail over 6 modules of training, which you can do at your own pace. And as a final reminder, that download I promised you is going to be on eddale.co/blog. It'll be on the blog about 24 hours after this broadcast. So keep an eye out, eddale.co/blog. And if you want to know exactly when it is, just follow me on Twitter, ed_Dale, and we'll make sure we pop it up on Twitter. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for being part of the live broadcast today. Really enjoying doing this stuff, and I hope you get a great benefit out of it. Again, if you've got any suggestions or anything like, hit me up on Twitter, or again, just leave it live.eddale.co. Okay, with that, I will do my graceful, as always, stop streaming. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll speak soon.